Welcome to Locker Talk. I'm Megan Charwa, Marketing Communications Manager at BreachLock, and today's conversation is around the future of PTaaS and balancing agentic pentesting with expert accountability. I'm pleased to welcome our two speakers. Seemant Sehgal is the founder and CEO of BreachLock, a global leader in offensive security. A 25-year industry veteran and former head of global red team for ING Bank, he draws from his experience managing multi-million-dollar security budgets to solve inherent speed and scalability challenges of traditional pen testing with innovative solutions. Under his leadership, BreachLock delivers a unified ecosystem of penetration testing as a service, agentic AI-powered adversarial exposure validation, and continuous threat exposure management. He is also a member of the Forbes Technology Council and is an ISACA Journal author. He holds CISM and CISA credentials and is a dedicated angel investor in the cybersecurity space. Seemant, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Megan.
Thank you. Chris Ray is the Field Chief Technology Officer at GigaOm. Chris is a seasoned professional in the cybersecurity field, bringing a wealth of experience from small teams to large financial institutions, as well as industries such as healthcare, financials, and tech. He has acquired an extensive amount of experience advising and consulting with security vendors, helping them find product market fit, as well as deliver cybersecurity services. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Chris, this is BreachLock's third year as a leader. So looking at the evolution of the PTaaS radar report from version 1 to version 4, what's the single biggest barrier to entry that now separates the leaders from the rest of the pack?
Yeah, so to me, it sounds like you're kind of asking like, what's the feature that we need to pay attention to most? What's the biggest differentiator here, right? That's really what the core of this is. Let's first compare legacy pen testing to PTaaS. Legacy pen testing, slow, manual, point in time, not continuous, and then shift into PTaaS. PTaaS, we're talking about continuously done, streamlined procurements, easily dynamic and customizable. It's very much the antithesis of your experience with legacy penetration testing. And then if you look at that and we start thinking like, okay, well, what can PTaaS do differently from legacy pen testing? What's going to make PTaaS do that even better? It's really on your depth of integration with your development lifecycle. How do you take those findings from your PTaaS platform, which is performing this continuous assessment, and continuously feed that into your development lifecycle so you can, as fast as possible, remediate these findings? I find, we measure in the report that we'll talk about a little bit more, several key features or differentiating features. One of them is that integration with the SDLC lifecycle, your DevOps processes, whatever you want to call it. That is, as far as I'm concerned, from what I've seen in the last 2 to 3 years of the evolution of PTaaS, that's the single biggest differentiating. I wish I could weight that more heavily. Unfortunately, I can't. So I'll use this opportunity to call that out here.
Thank you, Chris. And Seemant, BreachLock is positioned in the maturity and platform play quadrant in the report. So why was it a strategic priority for BreachLock to build a unified platform rather than staying as a specialized niche tool?
So I think it's quite in line with what Chris just said, right? The point on SDLC points to a direction where we are looking at everything as ecosystem rather than being a dot on the horizon, right? So how do you become part of a larger ecosystem where people are not only able to discover the findings, mobilize them, and eventually remediate them, right? So if you catch the thread, that's where Chris is heading as well. So in light of that, that's why the unified platform, because you can have 3 different sources of offensive security lens of vulnerabilities and findings coming your way as a CISO. And everybody can appreciate that we do need different levels of information, some more human vetted, some more automated, some more breadth oriented, some more depth oriented. But the real value for the CISO is how can they see all of this data in one single pane, and then could be able to correlate maybe the high level findings with the ones that I want to go deeper down into, or more importantly, what are my real risks? Now that I have my, the vulnerability scanners, my PTaaS, my ASM, my CTEM solutions, all giving me this, fire hose of findings. How do I get to the real risk, right? So that's the whole philosophy of having the unified platform. So we pride ourselves, obviously, for having the ASM piece, the PTaaS piece, and then the adversarial exposure validation piece. But we've kept it in a one unified platform. I would want to mention here, and also for our clients or prospects that are watching, that everything is very modular. So you don't have to buy everything because it's in the platform. You just use the capability and pay for what you really need at that point in time.
Thank you, Seemant. So now that we've covered the current state of the market and where PTaaS is, let's talk about where PTaaS is headed in the future. So this is a question for both of you. In 2 or 3 years, will we even be talking about PTaaS as an individual concept, or will it be fully absorbed into another category? And if so, what category would that be?
I'll jump in there first. So there's a big name in the analyst industry, which we're quickly going after. I know we'll surpass, but I won't go into the details. But they have a theory, and I think it's wrong, but I'll explain their theory. Their theory is PTaaS is going to be swallowed up and dead by 2028. It's going to be combined with other solutions like ASM, RBVM. It's going to become a larger platform. They'll still, advertise, yes, you can get penetration testing as a service here. Their rationale is PTaaS is a transitional term. It's a as a service suffix implies a human heavy delivery model that is becoming a bottleneck. My take on that is quite different. I don't see that happening. I see the consolidation, the platformization of the other exposure management technologies like ASM, like RBVM, like CTEM, those rolling up. And yeah, probably, a common name for those would be like continuous exposure management. And here's where they get it wrong. And I'm fairly certain I'll get it right, but we'll see in 2 or 3 years. They contest that because PTaaS is continuous, the line between testing and monitoring becomes blurred, and therefore it's all the same. I completely disagree with that. Monitoring is very passive in nature, right? I think we all agree on that. Testing, that's where you find the real stuff. So because of that distinction alone, I have a strong feeling that PTaaS will be a standalone solution, maybe part of a broader platform. Of course, that makes sense. It makes sense to have ASM available to you, or some sort of inside risk management like RBVM. Yeah, that's nice to have that all together in a single solution where you can, just purchase the modules that you need as you need them. But you'll always be able to buy PTaaS, at least for the next 5 or 6 years.
Thank you, Chris. And Seemant, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, not to the analyst side of things, but in principle, I agree with what Chris is saying, and I'll kind of tie it down to all the hype that we've seen with Anthropic and everything else happening over the course of the past month, right? There's a lot of hype on what AI should do, would do, can do, and that ties back into the automation element. And people go to the extent of saying that, okay, human in the loop is a historical fact. That won't be the case. And there I'm more or less aligned with Chris, right? It will not be the case. Human in the loop is not going away. The testing that's driven by humans has value. It might change. The future might look different. But the services element is going to stay. And not just for PTaaS. I think for everything that it would just evolve to the next level, but you will still need human in the loop. And I'll tell you why I have that strong belief, because especially in the field of offensive security, you need accountability, right? Nobody's going to let me, I've worked on the CISO side of the table, right? So nobody's going to let you touch the production network or production apps, which has got sensitive information, without any accountability, where you say, oh, sorry, my agent did that, deleted that file. That doesn't work in the real banking world, right? You want to be able to hold somebody accountable, and it cannot be an agent. Okay, that's why we write contracts. So maybe the agents are going to write the contracts, but the contracts aren't going away. the indemnity is not going away, right? So I think people have this utopian idea of this la la land where everything is AI, and Chris and me don't need to have a webinar because agent of Chris and me would be talking to each other. It's not going to happen. I understand the hype. I understand why the stocks are crashing, because the market runs on sentiment, not on logic, in most times. So all of that is there. But to sum it all up, PTaaS is here to stay. It will be a category. You might call it something else. I think Chris gave a good word for it. So I hope the people on the other side are listening because they're asking me the same question, like, what the name should be. So you can call it whatever, but in essence, PTaaS is going to stay, and the human in the loop, human accountability is not going anywhere. You could have more of testing done by agents. You can have the low hanging fruits done, and it's no different than automation. It's just the scale and speed that changes with the LLMs, right? And then humans just find more complex things to find or contextualize. I can tell you also in the HR direction that BreachLock's taking from its PTaaS is we are focusing more on soft skills, the risk assessment bit, the consulting elements while hiring pen testers now, so that they can help engage with the clients and help them with the remediation piece and prioritization piece. Even if there is a scenario where, let's say, 100% of the findings are commoditized and will be found by agentic technologies, right? So I'm fully in agreement with Chris that PTaaS is here to say you could call it whatever you have to, and it's not going to be a minus human offensive security strategy 1, 2, 3, 5 years from now. I don't see that happening.
Thank you, Seemant. And that leads me to my next question is, why do you believe the future of PTaaS must be a unified platform that integrates CTEM and adversarial exposure validation rather than a fragmented best-of-breed tool approach that we've seen in the past?
So I think, like I said before, and I think Chris alluded to that as well when he said that, sure, there can be a platform where all of these things are sitting, right? But they still have their individualistic value prop, right? So, CTEM has its own value prop, ASM has its own value prop, PTaaS has its own value prop. However, I think, by the end of the day, BreachLock's in the business where, we are, our main value proposition, and even more so going forward, is going to be data, right? So it's how we present that data, how we correlate that data. And if you relate it back to the ecosystem comment that I made earlier, and Chris said about SDLC there, right? So it's about how do you get all of that data together and help the CISOs with the mobilization and remediation steps in the vulnerability management lifecycle as we know it today, right? So everybody can have many findings from many sources. There's no dearth of that. But in the end, the CISO is only asking this question, okay, what are the next 5 things I need to fix so my score comes from, on the 100 on the risk register to 50? Can we help them prioritize that, right? So I think that's the main reason behind having a unified platform approach. Having these tools or solutions operating in silos is not the way to go forward, because we are, look, with agentic technologies and everything else that's happening, there's only going to be more data created. So there has to be an approach which keeps a tap on how can we get the relevant information in front of our clients in the shortest possible time and with the most precise next steps, right? Because they're going to be overwhelmed with all this influx of data, whether it's from humans or agents, it doesn't matter. It's only going to get bigger, right? I will also add one more thing to that, and that is that what I also hear now in discussions with this LLMs and all of that is, I've seen this happen before with cloud and with other things. It's not that the LLMs are going to take over the world and everything else is going to be dead. That's the conversation that's happening now. I think it's I don't even know how people can have that conversation, because we've been here for like 30 years doing, at least I have been in my career, I've seen multiple things happening. This whole layer is only going to add to more attack surface. It's not going to reduce it. So, the whole agentic workflows, the chatbots, the orchestration technology piece with MCP servers, the RAG models, these are all add-ons to the attack surface. And that kind of underpins the unified platform approach again, right? Because if it's even expanding, you need to take that within and not again as a silo, that people are not able to look at. I don't know, Chris, if you agree with everything I said or some of it that I said. I'm sure you're having a lot of conversations as well, right? About everything is
Yeah.
changing, everything's going to be dead, and it's going to be a new world out there. How do you look at it?
I see it very much the same way you do. There's a strong psychological attachment to the word penetration test, and that's lended to PTaaS. It's not TAAS, it's PTaaS.
Well said.
When your compliance compels you to perform a penetration test, people are very nervous about using a solution that, yeah, delivers a report that is, an attestation of a penetration test. But if the product itself isn't called a penetration test, that makes people nervous. That's that psychological hook. That's a major component why I know that PTaaS is not going to go away. Yes, I do agree with you. It will be part of a broader platform because it makes sense. You benefit when you have complementary technologies that enable your core, um, you know, mission to do its job better. ASM feeds attack surface into your PTaaS platform. That's great. It's telling you the things that you don't know about. It's enabling you to do better scoping of your penetration test. Beyond that, you start talking about exposure management and the continuous model. That enables you to reduce risk in a more meaningful manner, continuously. Those are all good things, but you're not going to get away from the PTaaS name. That's just, you always need something that's going to penetration test and give you that report for your auditors.
Great.
Thank you, Chris and Sam. Well said. And Chris, I have one more add-on question to that, which is from an analyst perspective, what is the missing piece in the PTaaS market today that you expect to be a standard requirement in the 2027 report, considering all that we just talked about?
Yeah. So I have three things. One, there will be a 2026 report. So we don't have to wait till 2027.
Right.
But the first one is probably it's really there's two missing pieces. I feel like the first one's very obvious. There's going to be a much more in-depth and broader AI component to testing, and it's we're I debated with myself and others internally here about adding an element of key differentiation to the report that we could measure around AI. But we kind of came to the same conclusion, which is it's not mature enough to really measure, and it's not transparent enough to understand and quantify in a way that we could reliably convey here's what the reality of the situation is. What I'm finding is there's some PTaaS vendors that are using like a GPT as a report wrapper that helps break down complex issues or rewrites, the testing in a way that's more human friendly. And that's good. That's an improvement, but it's not really what I think people are thinking of when they think penetration testing plus AI. That's more like penetration testing report plus AI. So in the next version, maybe in 2027, it'll be more developed, more mature. I think in the next version, though, I'm going to really focus on how AI, that broad umbrella term of all the technologies that roll up under that, are used in the PTaaS solutions, and not just at individual components of the testing phases. It needs to be a comprehensive AI-based solution, not the entire thing, but if you're going to deploy AI in your PTaaS, it needs to be comprehensive. It doesn't just need to find better. It doesn't just need to triage better. It doesn't need to just report better, and it doesn't help remediate better. It needs to do all of those things together in unison. Otherwise, you're going to create a bottleneck somewhere in the process. So that's the first one. The second one is kind of, I believe this is a missing piece that people aren't really thinking of. It's the inclusion of business context or business context attribution is kind of what I've settled on thinking about it as. Instead of saying, hey, this is a CVSS 9.8, here's how we executed, here's how we were able to do this, here's what we got out of it. That's all technical. It should just translate immediately to this could be $30 million in lost revenue if this happens. And here's why. That business context makes it so much easier to prioritize what you find in a pen test.
Well said.
Well said, Chris. Thanks. So that brings us to the final part of this conversation, which is autonomous pen testing and agentic AI and what that means in practice. So Seemant, this question is for you. You've mentioned before that AI is today what the cloud was 10 years ago. So how does autonomous pen testing move us past simple automation?
So yeah, I mean, AI is where cloud was 10 years ago. The only difference being this is going a lot faster, right? So yeah, I mean, look, there's multiple ways to look at this. One is that there's the supply side of things, and there is the demand side of things. I think supply, there's a lot of buzz, lots of things happening in the market. I'm sure Chris sees that as an analyst. But on the demand side, when I talk to CISOs, the first, let's say if I speak to 10 CISOs, then 8 of them would go like, I want to know about it, I want to understand it. Only 2 would go, okay, I will buy it, right? When it comes to autonomous pen testing. So I think I see a lot of sensitivity going forward in the buying behavior, right? And but is it useful? Yes, it is. I mean, we're using it, and like Chris said, we're not using it as a wrapper around just reporting. It's a part of our DNA now, to use agentic input for humans to be able to do pen test in a better way, right? And it starts from recon, goes to vulnerability assessment, exploitation phase, attack paths, threat modeling. It touches just about everything, let aside reporting, right? Um, so yeah, I see it. I see it. I'm quite bullish on what this can do, but a lot is still to be discovered, is what I think. I mean, especially if you look back at the last 4 weeks and how quickly things are pivoting, how new use cases are emerging. AI or AI driven or autonomous pen testing is not going to be an exception to that rule. That's what I believe.
Thank you, Sam. And another question, which Chris, I don't know if you want to chime in on this afterwards, as from a general perspective, but Seemant, what does the human and AI synergy look like for a BreachLock pen tester in 2026, and how does the autonomous technology change their day-to-day work?
So I will answer for BreachLock, and maybe Chris can give the more general view based because he speaks to a lot more people on the outside. So I think at BreachLock, like I said, we have our product that's 100% agentic. It's called Adversarial Exposure Validation. Obviously, that technology we are offering to our clients. They are using it for internal network, and we're going to come up with web application autonomous pen testing as well. So obviously, it would not be fair for us to sell it as a product to our clients, where internal pen testing teams at large banks, large energy companies, large media companies are using it, and then we don't use it as a part of our PTaaS process. So that's not going to fly. So obviously, we're going to use the input of those, and that kind of pushes our human layer a step forward. Like I said, we're hiring for more soft skills, more risk thinking, the business context part that Chris said, right? So we are looking for people who have experience in different domains, let's say financial services, software, consulting, different domains where they can contextualize that business impact and go beyond that CVSS score, not just in our product, but also in the way humans will communicate about those findings to our clients, because we have report readout sessions and stuff like that, right? So we are hiring for those skills now. So to sum it all up, yes, I see agentic left, right, and center in the coming years. From an offensive security platform perspective that BreachLock has been building for 7 years and will build for the next 10. That's not changing. It will be left, right, and center. And hopefully because of that, the human layer will evolve to something more meaningful, which I already alluded to what that would be. Chris, your take?
Yeah, I am in lockstep with you on this one. The way I see it is the pen tester is no longer just the hands on the keyboard. You could really think of them more as like a mission commander overseeing a fleet of digital agents, right? The AI handles 95% of the grunt work, scanning the 10,000 IPs, brute forcing, maybe doing basic lateral movement if it's well documented. Really what this does is it frees the human and it amplifies their capabilities to focus instead on the 5% of the highly complex, logic-based, MacGyver-style exploits that require the soul of a human in the sense of intuition. Um, the human in the loop model, it's essential because AI right now, it lacks that out of band context. Like you were talking about, hiring for soft skills, hiring for people who are able to better contextualize the business risk. The human provides the ethical guardrails and the strategic gut feeling that AI hasn't mastered yet and probably won't for quite a while.
Right. And also, I think for the accountability part, Chris, that's also what I hear from CISOs, right? They want somebody to take accountability. Even if, like you said, 95% of the findings came from agentic, but did a human validate it? Is it minus the noise? Because look, no technology that we've developed in the past in vulnerability management domain has not been, immune to the false positive problem, right? Or the more you scale with technology, the more false positives you get, and that's a very common term in the vulnerability management domain. Every CISO understands it, every practitioner understands it. So what I see is with my conversations with CISOs, they're all looking for human accountability. They want to know you're not creating more noise with more automation, even though it's driven by agentic. These are findings that matter to the CISOs, and if they fix it, and as they should, it should move the risk needle, to a more positive trend, right? Because you can keep fixing findings all day, but if it doesn't matter to the business, like you said, if it's not contextualized and meaningful risk reduction, then basically you just wasted all that effort on maybe you could have spent on something more meaningful, right? So I completely agree with you, and I think it's exciting. Next 2-3 years will be exciting. It's a lot of disruption, but we'll read more about it in the 2026 PTaaS report, Chris. So
Yeah, we're on the cusp of a very exciting time.
Absolutely couldn't agree more.
Thank you both for those insights, and thanks for a great conversation today to you both. For anyone watching, if you'd like to learn more about BreachLock or read the full GigaOm PTaaS Radar report, visit breachlock.com. Thanks for watching.